All right, week number 2. Let's do this. So, as a review, we're going to go over kind of like what we're trying to model, and then we're going to work backwards to the drills. Okay, so we're going to take a peek right now at the man that many people know, named Mr. Connor McDavid. For the next about 3 seconds, you get a really good glimpse of his standard straight up forward stride right there. The key traits, if we remember, his knees are apart. When he recovers his foot, it's coming underneath his body, underneath his head. And then when he extends it, it's nice and out, not underneath his head, out to the side of his head. So again, those are the habits we're trying to create. Knees wide, feet recovering back underneath us, huge long extension, giant push on each individual stride. This is where we're getting it from. A dude like Connor. He's doing it almost perfect. Right there. It's amazing. Just study him, watch him. If you can mirror that in your skating, you're doing just fine. Okay, so the first drill that we did last week, we were dragging and touching our foot. Push, drag, touch, push, drag, touch. And I was doing that with another player, and one of the biggest problems that they were running into is they're standing up and down, up and down, up and down, and they're not staying nice and low and consistent and getting a giant push and stride. Just to recap that, we want to have a big push, 90-degree bend in our knee that we're striding to, recover your foot, touch the actual metal part of your blade to your other boot, push, stride to the other side all the time, keeping your knees nice and wide. Simple, right? But again, like there's a lot of little habits in there that you got to look out for. If any of that's not clear, just go back, watch last week's video. Last week, we pushed, dragged, stopped, then went to the other side. The advancement of that is what I'm doing in this drill, where there's no stopping in between each stride. This is kind of the intermediary step to get used to moving to a full stride. You're not pushing, dragging, stopping. You're just doing consistent strides, right, left, right, left. To advance this is pretty challenging, honestly. We move to a normal full forward stride with our stick in front of us, still looking for that nice giant push side to side, recovering our feet and stepping very far. What happens when kids and players make the transition from that first drill to the second drill? They don't have a really clearly defined muscle memory on which muscles to fire when and how to move. And so the way I tell people to do it is you start off with the drag, touch, stop, then go, the first drill we did. And the second drill where you're not stopping in between, you do that. And the reason I call it training wheels is it shows you what muscles to move and fire when, where, and why. When you get out of that, you have to get used to skating more dynamically, but the same muscle groups are really kind of engaging in order to keep your stride intact. And a couple of things that really throw players off when we're striding like this, when they push, the problem with this foot landing here, I'm gliding forward, but my foot's drifting off course. And so a lot of players get in trouble here because they try to either like bring this foot forward or their upper body doesn't really like follow that foot over. And so what happens is their foot winds up like leaking out while their upper body's here. So essentially their upper body stays this way and their foot goes that way. We want to see our upper body and lower body kind of shift just a little bit over to keep all that power and energy stored in that leg. You can see it right there. So if you look at my head's here. When my foot lands, my head's here. So I actually moved over that way just a little bit in order to compensate for that side-to-side motion and the stride. That's something that kids have a really, really, really hard time with. That's the first part that they have a hard time with. The second part they have a hard time with is this recovery. In order to do this stride, you're not allowed to glide as much as if you just glide straight forward and you're striding straight forward. You have to turn your feet over more often, which means that this recovery leg has to get back underneath you more quickly. And that's just something you got to work on, and you got to start firing the right muscle groups at the right time with the right consistency. So look at the knee, it's here. But you can notice how when I'm doing this, I'm snapping the lower part of my leg in. we only really recover our foot, not our whole leg. And so this is a hugely key point. When we're doing that recovery, we only need to recover our knee to our toe of our foot. We don't need to recover our whole foot. But if you go watch Connor McDavid, you can see how when he recovers, it's just the lower half of his leg. It's way more efficient, takes way less energy and way less time, and you can turn your feet over more quickly and create the same amount of power. So when you do this next drill, focus on kind of shifting side to side, keeping your knees nice and wide, being comfortable with drifting off your intended line. So you want to go straight, but you have to drift a little bit side to side as you're skating. And then when you recover, we went over it in the original drill, kind of snap that leg underneath, sucking it in. The way that I tell kids to think about it is imagine there's a bungee cord attached to the toe of your foot and your opposite knee. Your job is to keep that opposite knee out so it doesn't collapse in. A lot of kids, this knee will collapse inwards and be underneath their head. We want to keep that out. The second thing, after you do a nice big giant push, finishing off your toe, et cetera, you're snapping this foot back underneath your body, but it starts from the toe of your skate blade. That's one of the main reasons we were working on how we drag our toe on the ice. Because when we recover in this stride, we want to try to keep our toe as close to the ice as possible when we recover and not lift it up too high while engaging all the appropriate muscles on the inside of our leg to snap that leg in. And another key point to look for is that back leg coming up too high on the recovery. We want it really close to the ice, right back underneath our body. Right there. And you'll notice too, when I stride, one of the things I tell kids is when I'm pushing off my right leg, I want to think that this left leg doesn't snap or get pushed into the ice. I want this left leg to pretty much finish pushing off, and then I just happen to land on my right leg. So I'm not stabbing my foot into the ice, trying to get it on the ice. I'm trying to get a giant, smooth, full stride on my right leg to my left leg, finishing with all the power that I have in each leg. I think that's about it to cover. So the next drill, again, is just this. It's just taking the advancement from dragging and touching to just trying to do it without dragging your foot and without touching your skates, your other boot. All the mechanics stay the same. You just got to go over it and over it. And the way that I typically have kids do it is they'll make the transition to no longer dragging and touching, and they'll screw it up, and then we'll kind of go backwards. We'll drag and touch their toe, drag and touch the foot, and then kind of get the feeling and the flow again, and then advance it forward again to kind of try to like bridge the gap between those two, because that's really the idea. Pretty simple, hard to execute on. And again, like I've never explained this over video, so if something's not clear, please let me know. I'll go over it and go into depth on it and provide as much as I can. Anyway, hope you dig it. If you got any value from it, please share it around, trying to get the word out. And we'll see you next week. Bye.